We don't need your pocket change. My wife's dad laughed at my offer to help. This is a $50 million business. My wife smirked. I quietly texted my investment manager, withdraw all backing from Anderson Holdings. Their emergency board meeting started in 10 minutes. The chandeliers in the Anderson estate dining room cast everything in gold. The silverware, the crystal, the faces of people who'd never known what it meant to count pennies. I sat at the far end of the table, the chair that had become mine by marriage, but never by acceptance, watching my wife Claire laugh at something her father said. The sound was champagne bubbles and country club tennis lessons. The kind of laugh that had drawn me in 5 years ago when I was still stupid enough to believe love could bridge the gap between old money and no money. Michael Clare's father, Richard Anderson, said my name the way you'd acknowledge a waiter. Claire tells me, you've been looking at the quarterly reports. I set down my fork carefully. The filt minen on my plate cost more than my mother's weekly grocery budget used to be back when grocery budgets mattered. There are some concerning trends in the concerning. Richard chuckled, cutting me off. He reached for his wine, a 1982 Chateau Margaux that he'd opened without ceremony. The way other people open bottled water. That's adorable. Claire's mother, Patricia, smiled that smile. Wealthy women perfect over decades of charity galas and polite dismissal. Michael, dear, you have to understand. Richard has been running this company since before you were born. I understand that, I said quietly. I'm just saying that the real estate division is over-leveraged and the tech acquisition from last quarter. Pocket change, Richard interrupted, waving his hand. You're thinking in thousands, son. We think in millions, son. He'd been calling me that for 5 years, and it had never once sounded warm. Claire leaned forward. Her diamond bracelet, an anniversary gift from her parents, not from me. Catching the light. Honey, maybe we should leave the business, talk to people who understand the business. Something in her tone made me look at her. Really look at her. The woman I'd married had been kinder. Or maybe I'd just been too dazzled by her world to notice the edge beneath the polish. When had that changed? Or had it always been there, hidden behind the country club smile and the promise that love was enough? I do understand the business, I said, my voice still even. Years of growing up poor had taught me to keep my emotions locked down, to never give people the satisfaction of seeing you bleed. I've been studying it for months. The debt-to-equity ratio is Michael. Richard sat down his wine glass with a soft clink that somehow sounded like a gavel. Let me be direct. I appreciate that you're trying to contribute. I really do. It's sweet. But Anderson Holdings is a $50 million enterprise. We have entire departments full of Harvard MBAs whose sole job is to analyze what you're talking about. We don't need. He paused and something cruel flickered in his eyes. Your pocket change. The table went quiet. Claire's brother, Jonathan, smirked into his napkin. Patricia suddenly became very interested in her wine. Claire looked at her plate and that more than anything cut through me like a blade. She didn't defend me. She didn't even look uncomfortable. I see, I said softly. Richard seemed to take my quiet response as acquiescence. He smiled. Expansive now, generous in victory. Look, your family. You married our daughter, but let's be realistic about what you bring to the table. You have your little software consulting business, and that's fine for what it is. But this, he gestured broadly at the dining room, at the mansion, at the empire he'd built. This is generational wealth. This is legacy. You don't build this with pocket change and good intentions. No, I agreed, pulling my phone from my pocket. You build it with capital. Exactly, Richard said, pleased that I was finally understanding my place. Capital scale connections, things that take decades too. Speaking of capital, I interrupted, my fingers moving across my phone screen. I need to make a quick call. Excuse me, I stood, pushing back from the table. The Persian rug beneath my feet cost more than the car I'd driven in college. The car I'd lived in for 3 months when my consulting business was failing, and I was too proud to ask Claire's family for help. Pride. Funny how that works. They'd mistaken my pride for gratitude, my silence for acceptance, my patience for weakness. Michael, we're in the middle of dinner. Patricia protested weakly. This will just take a moment, I said, already walking toward the study. It's less than urgent. Behind me, I heard Jonathan mutter something, heard Claire's soft laugh. The sound followed me down the hallway, past family portraits of Anderson stretching back generations. All of them looking down with the same expression Richard had just worn, abused condescension, the look of people who'd never had to fight for anything. The study was dark wood and leather, old money incarnate. I closed the door behind me and pulled up my contacts. My hand was steady. That surprised me. I thought it might shake. Marcus Chun answered on the second ring. Michael wasn't expecting to hear from you tonight. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. I walked to the window, looking out at the Anderson estate grounds. 15 acres in Connecticut. The pool house was bigger than the apartment I'd grown up in. I need you to withdraw all backing from Anderson Holdings. Everything. Silence on the other end. Then everything. Everything. Michael, you're talking about approximately $37 million across various investment vehicles, loans, and equity positions. That's 90% of their operational capital. I finished. I know. Another pause. Marcus had been my investment manager for 4 years, since before I'd married Clare. Since before any of them knew that the quiet guy from nowhere had built something substantial. He'd watched me turn a failing software consulting business into something else entirely. He'd never asked why I kept it quiet. Maybe he understood that some people need to know they can survive on their own. That the safety net they're sleeping under isn't borrowed. You realize what this will do to them, Marcus said carefully. The real estate division is days away from a major closing. If we pull the bridge financing, I realize the tech acquisition from last quarter was structured with our debt facility as primary collateral. If we call it Michael. Marcus' voice gentled. I've known you a long time. I've never seen you make a decision out of anger. I'm not angry, I said, and realized it was true. I felt calm, crystalline, like I'd been walking through fog for 5 years, and suddenly the sun had burned it away. I'm just done being invisible. When do you want this executed? I checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. now, all of it. And Marcus, make sure the notifications go directly to Richard's email, the one he checks obsessively. I want him to see it tonight. That's going to trigger emergency board meeting protocols. Their bylaws require a meeting within 12 hours of any event that affects more than 25% of operational capital. I know. I've read their bylaws. Of course, I had. While they thought I was reading bedtime stories to the daughter, we didn't have yet. The daughter Clare kept putting off because her body was still perfect and she wanted to keep it that way. I'd been reading corporate documents. While they'd assumed I was watching football in the media room, I'd been analyzing 5 years of financial statements. While they'd smiled at me across dinner tables and called me son and dear and thought I was content to be their charity case, I'd been building a very different kind of empire. It's done, Marcus said. Finally. The paperwork will hit their servers in approximately 15 minutes. Michael, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. I ended the call and stood there for a moment looking at the study that Richard considered his sanctum. The walls were covered in photographs of business triumphs, newspaper clippings announcing deals, framed stock certificates from companies he'd acquired. There wasn't a single photo of Clare. Not one picture of his daughter, just monuments to himself. When I opened the door, Clare was standing in the hallway. What was that about? She asked. She'd followed me. Or maybe she'd been sent. It was hard to tell anymore where her will ended and her family's began. Business, I said. You don't have that kind of business. Not the kind that pulls you away from dinner with my parents, don't I? Something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. It was foreign on her face, like she tried on a costume that didn't quite fit. Michael, you're being weird. Am I? I walked past her back toward the dining room. I'm just being myself, Clare. Maybe you've never noticed. That's not fair. She said, but there was no heat in it. Just reflexive defense. No, I agreed. It's really not. We returned to the dining room where Richard was holding court telling a story about outmaneuvering some competitor in a deal from the 8S. Jonathan was laughing on cue. Patricia was smiling her smile. This was their world. Stories about victory, about dominance, about putting people in their place. I sat down and picked up my fork. The Filt Minen was cold now, but I cut into it anyway. 9 minutes. That's how long it would take for the automated systems to process Marcus instructions, for the capital withdrawals to trigger the emergency protocols, for the emails to start hitting Richard's inbox. As I was saying, Richard continued, not even acknowledging that I'd returned. The key to business is knowing when you have leverage and when you don't. This fellow thought he could. Richard's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Then started ringing. He frowned, pulling it from his pocket. It's Stevens, he said, referring to his CFO. I need to take this during dinner, Patricia said, throwing me a look that suggested my earlier phone call had been some kind of breach of etiquette that was now infecting her husband. It must be important, Richard said, standing. He walked to the doorway, phone to his ear. Stevens, what is it? I watched him. I didn't turn away. I wanted to see it. His face went from annoyed to confused to something I'd never seen before on Richard Anderson's face. Afraid. What do you mean withdrawn? His voice pitched higher. All of it. That's impossible. The credit facility alone is. He listened and I watched the color drain from his face. 37 million. Who authorized? He turned slowly, his eyes finding mine across the room. I held his gaze. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at him the way he'd looked at me for 5 years, like he was something small that didn't quite matter. I'll call you back, Richard said quietly into the phone. He ended the call with a shaking hand. Richard. Patricia's voice carried a tremor of concern. What's wrong? Someone just pulled all of Peterson Holdings' investment capital from our company, Peterson Holdings. That's what Marcus called our primary investment vehicle. It was buried under 3 layers of LLC structures and trust arrangements. The name Peterson was my mother's maiden name. The grandmother who'd raised me in a 2-bedroom apartment and taught me that dignity didn't have a price tag and revenge was a dish best served cold. Peterson Holdings. Jonathan frowned. That's the primary capital facility for the real estate division. But they've never their silent partners. They don't interfere with, they just interfered, Richard said. His eyes never left mine. $37 million withdrawn. All of it. Claire's hand went to her mouth. But that's Daddy. That's most of. I know what it is. Richard snapped. Then softer, still staring at me. Who owns Peterson Holdings? The question hung in the air like chandelier light. Beautiful and sharp. Michael. Claire's voice was small. You don't know anything about this, do you? I set down my fork carefully, the same way I'd set it down earlier when Richard had interrupted me. When he called my concerns pocket change, when he'd smiled at me like I was a child who didn't understand grown-up things. Actually, I said quietly, I own Peterson Holdings along with several other investment vehicles that you're about to become very familiar with. The silence that followed was the most expensive sound I'd ever heard. You need to understand something about poverty to understand what happened next. Real poverty. Not the kind where you complain about student loans while your parents pay your rent. The kind where you're 12 years old and calculating whether you can skip lunch for a week to help your grandmother with the electric bill. The kind where you learn to be invisible because being noticed means being mocked for your Walmart shoes and hand-me-down clothes. That was my childhood. My parents died in a car accident when I was 8. A drunk driver, a rainy night, the kind of tragedy that's mundane in its commonness. My grandmother took me in. She worked 3 jobs. I wore clothes from Goodwill and pretended not to care when kids laughed. I learned to be quiet, to observe, to understand that the world was divided into people who had and people who didn't. And I was firmly in the latter category. But I was good at math, very good. And computers made sense to me in a way people didn't. By the time I was 16, I was building websites for local businesses. By 18, I'd saved enough to go to community college. By 22, I had a degree in a failing software consulting business and absolutely no safety net. That's when I met Thomas Peterson. Thomas was old money that had somehow kept its soul. His family had made their fortune in shipping in the 1800s, and Thomas had spent his life quietly investing in things he believed in. He found me through a mutual connection when I was building a piece of software for a nonprofit. He was 78, sharp as a blade, and lonely in the way rich people get when they realize money can't buy genuine connection. We became friends, real friends. He mentored me, not in the condescending way Richard would later try to, but with genuine respect. He saw something in me, the hunger maybe, or the discipline that comes from growing up with nothing. He taught me about investment, about capital, about how money worked when you had enough of it to make it work for you. When he died 2 years before I met Claire, he left me everything. Not publicly. That wasn't Thomas's style. He'd structured it through trusts and LLCs and investment vehicles. The kind of financial architecture that kept everything quiet. He knew I'd need the privacy. Money changes how people see you. He told me once, make sure you know who loves you for who you are before you let them know what you have. So, I kept it quiet. The software consulting business was real. I enjoyed the work and it gave me a reason to be busy that people understood. But underneath, I had $37 million in liquid assets, another 15 in real estate, and a portfolio that Marcus managed with surgical precision. When I met Claire, I was myself. Just myself. A guy who worked hard, who treated her well, who loved her with the intensity of someone who'd never expected to be loved back. She was beautiful and brilliant and kind. Or so I thought. Her family was wealthy, but I didn't care. I had my own money. I didn't need theirs. What I needed, I thought, was to be accepted, to be valued, to have someone look at me and see something worth keeping. I'd been such a fool. You own Peterson Holdings, Richard repeated slowly. He'd sat back down at the table, but his movements were mechanical, like someone in shock. You, my daughter's husband, Who I thought had nothing. I finished for him. Yes, that's what you thought. Claire was staring at me like I was a stranger. Michael, I don't understand. You have a software consulting business. You work from home. We live on my trust fund. No, I interrupted gently. You live on your trust fund. I live on my own money. I always have. But you never said you never. You never asked. That landed hard. I could see it in her face the moment she realized that for 5 years she'd made assumptions about me, about us, about the fundamental structure of our relationship, and she'd never once questioned them. Let me make sure I understand this, Jonathan said, leaning forward. He looked like his father. Same sharp nose, same calculating eyes. You've been secretly rich this entire time while we've been treating me like charity. I said, yes, this is insane, Claire whispered. Why wouldn't you tell me? I'm your wife. Am I your husband? The question came out quieter than I'd intended. Or am I the acceptable poor kid you married because I didn't challenge you? Didn't make you feel less than? Didn't compete with daddy's money? That's not fair, she said, her voice cracking. Isn't it? I looked around the table. Tell me, Claire, in 5 years of marriage, how many times have you introduced me as your husband versus Claire's husband? How many times have you defended me when your father made jokes about my background? How many times have you valued my opinion over his? She opened her mouth, closed it, no words came. You've been playing us, Richard said. And now there was anger mixing with the shock. Some kind of game testing us. That's sick. No. I shook my head. I wasn't playing anything. I was being myself. The man I actually am, not the man you assumed I was. You're the ones who made assumptions. You're the ones who treated me like I wasn't worth listening to. I just stopped correcting you. You should have told us, Patricia said. Her voice was tight. It's dishonest. Is it? I turned to her. Did you tell me about your gambling problem? The one that Richard's been covering up for 15 years? The one that's cost approximately $4 million in payoffs to casinos and private creditors. She went white. Did you tell me, Jonathan, about the sexual harassment settlements your father's paid out on your behalf? 3 different women, $800,000 in NDAs. Jonathan's smirk vanished. Did you tell me, Richard, that Anderson Holdings is actually leveraged to the point of near insolvency? That the $50 million valuation you're so proud of is built on $37 million of my money and another $15 million in loans you'll default on within the quarter? How do you? Richard started. How do I know? I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. Because I do my homework, because while you were dismissing me, I was reading every financial statement your company files, every loan document, every acquisition report. I know everything, Richard. I know the real estate division is about to collapse because you overbid on properties in Connecticut, assuming my capital would cover the gap. I know the tech acquisition was a disaster because the company you bought is being sued for patent infringement. I know that without my money, you have about 6 weeks before you have to start selling assets to cover operational costs. The silence was absolute, and I know, I continued, my voice dropping lower, that you're not actually successful businessmen. You're just wealthy. There's a difference. Success requires building something. You inherited something and slowly bled it dry while pretending you were geniuses. Richard stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You have no right. I have every right. I stood too, but slowly, calmly. I have the right of someone who was treated like nothing. The right of someone who sat through 5 years of quiet mockery and condescension. The right of someone whose wife just sat there and let her father call his concerns pocket change. Michael. Claire reached for my hand. I stepped back. Michael, please. We can fix this. We can. Can we? I looked at her. Really looked at her. When had she stopped being the woman I'd fallen in love with? Or had I just been too desperate for acceptance to see who she really was? Can you fix the way you introduced me to your friends? The way you always apologized for my clothes, my car, my background. The way you suggested I let your father handle our finances because you assumed I didn't understand money. I was trying to help, she whispered. No. You were trying to manage me to make me fit into the slot you assigned me. The poor but sweet husband who was lucky to marry up. That's not. It is. I pulled out my phone again. Marcus just sent me the emergency board meeting notification. It's scheduled for 11 p.m. tonight. I checked my watch 1 hour and 7 minutes from now. All board members are required to attend when there's a capital event of this magnitude. You can't do this, Richard said. His voice was shaking. You're destroying us over what? Hurt feelings. Because I made a joke about pocket change. No, I said quietly. I'm doing this because you made it clear that you see me as less than. Because my wife agrees with you. Because I've spent 5 years trying to earn something that was never going to be given. Respect. Basic human respect. I respect you, Claire said desperately. Do you? I turned to her fully now. Then answer this honestly. If I had told you on our first date that I was worth $50 million, would you have loved me the same way? She hesitated. It was only a second, barely a breath, but it was enough. That's what I thought. I said softly. Michael, you're not being fair. You lied to me. I never lied. I just didn't advertise my bank balance. There's a difference. It's the same thing, is it? I picked up my phone. Then why did you lie to me about the prenup? She froze. Oh, yes, I said. I found that, too. The one your father had drawn up that you never gave me to sign. The one that's sitting in his office safe. The one that would have protected your family's assets in case we divorced. Except you didn't need me to sign it because you all assumed I had nothing worth protecting. You didn't even think I was worth the paperwork. Richard's jaw clenched. That was standard precaution. It was an insult. I cut him off. You didn't even think I warranted the respect of a legal document. I was that far beneath you. This is my fault, Claire said suddenly. This is all my fault. I should have. Michael, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please. We can fix this. You can reinvest the money. Daddy will apologize. We all will. We'll treat you differently. Please. You'll treat me differently because you know I have money now, not because you realize I deserve to be treated with respect all along. That's not true, isn't it? I walked toward the door behind me. Chairs scraped as they all stood. Where are you going? Claire's voice pitched toward panic. Home. My home. The apartment I've been keeping in Manhattan. The one you didn't know about. You have an apartment in Manhattan, Jonathan said. What else don't we know? Everything that matters, I said. You don't know who I actually am. You've never asked. Michael, please. Claire was crying now. Real tears. Not the decorative kind she used for charity events. Please don't do this. I love you. I stopped at the doorway and turned back. Do you? Or do you love feeling like you saved someone? Like you brought the poor kid into your world and gave him a better life? That's not I think it is. I think you married me because I was safe. Because I didn't threaten your family's dominance. Because you could always point to me as proof that you were kind, generous, willing to love someone despite their circumstances. Despite. Her voice broke on the word, yes, despite. You never loved me because of who I was. You loved me despite it. Despite my background, despite my lack of pedigree, despite everything that makes me me. That's not true, she whispered. But there was no conviction in it. The board meeting starts in an hour, I said to Richard. You should probably prepare. It's going to be a long night. You're going to destroy us, he said flatly. Over what? Pride. No, I said I'm going to let you sink or swim on your own merit without my money propping you up, without my capital covering your mistakes. You want to be a $50 million business? Prove it. Build it. But build it without using me as your foundation. Michael. Patricia stood and for the first time she looked small, fragile. Please think about what you're doing. Think about your marriage, your family. I did. For 5 years, that's all I thought about. How to be good enough, how to fit in, how to earn your approval. I shook my head. I'm done thinking about it now. I'm just done. I walked out of the dining room, down the marble hallway, past the family portraits of Andersons who'd been looking down on people like me for generations. My footsteps echoed in the silence. Claire caught up with me at the front door. Michael, wait. Please, just wait. I turned. She was beautiful, even crying. Some people are like that. Their tears just another accessory. What? Tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Claire. There's just reality. And the reality is that you married someone you didn't respect. Someone you saw as a project, not a partner. That's not true. Then why didn't you defend me at dinner when your father called my concerns pocket change when he laughed at me? Why didn't you say a single word? She opened her mouth, closed it. I didn't think you didn't think it mattered because you agreed with him. No, he's my father. He's been running that company for decades. I thought you thought he knew better than me because I'm just the poor kid who got lucky, who married up, who should be grateful for the scraps of attention your family throws my way. Stop it. She grabbed my arm. Stop putting words in my mouth. Stop making me the villain. I love you. I've always loved you. Yes, maybe I haven't been perfect. Maybe I've let my family influence me too much. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. What do you love, Claire? I asked gently. The man you thought I was? The struggling consultant who needed your family's help, or the man I actually am? I don't know the man you actually are, she whispered. You never let me know him. I've been right here for 5 years. You never asked because you never told me. I shouldn't have to declare my bank balance for you to treat me with respect. She stepped back, her hand falling from my arm. This is really happening. You're really leaving? Yes. Because of one dinner, one stupid comment. No, because of 5 years of stupid comments. 5 years of being invisible. 5 years of being tolerated instead of celebrated. This dinner was just the moment I stopped accepting it. What about us? Our marriage. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd thought was kind. The woman who'd turned out to be just another Anderson. I think our marriage ended a long time ago. Claire, we just didn't notice because we were both pretending to be people we're not. I'm not pretending. I'm just me. Exactly. You're Richard Anderson's daughter and I'm the poor kid who got lucky. That's all I've ever been to you. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's really not. But it's honest. I opened the door. The November air was cold, sharp, real in a way the temperature-controlled mansion never was. Michael, her voice stopped me one more time. If you do this, if you destroy my family's business, I'll never forgive you. I turned back. Claire, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just removing my support. If your family's business can't survive without my capital, then it was never really successful to begin with. It was just expensive. That's the same thing as destroying it. No, it's the same thing as revealing the truth. I walked to my car, a 5-year-old Honda Civic that I'd kept, despite Claire's protests that it was embarrassing. It had been my grandmother's car. She'd saved for 3 years to buy it. It meant something to me that no Tesla or Mercedes ever could. As I drove away from the Anderson estate, my phone started ringing. Richard, then Jonathan, then Claire, then Richard again. I let it ring. Behind me, the mansion glowed like a jewel box, beautiful and empty. I had an hour before the board meeting would start. An hour before Richard and his executives would gather to discuss the capital event that was going to change everything. An hour before they'd have to face the reality that their $50 million business was built on foundations they didn't control. I wasn't going to that meeting. I didn't need to. Marcus would handle the legal requirements, the paperwork, the transition. My role was done. I'd removed the mask. I'd stopped being invisible. Now they'd have to figure out how to survive without the pocket change they'd been standing on all along. The Manhattan apartment was quiet in a way the Anderson estate never was. Their silence was performance. The hushed reverence of wealth broken by the careful clink of crystal and the rehearsed laughter of people who'd never had to be genuine. This silence was real. Just me and the city lights stretching out beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. 30 stories above the noise. I bought this place 3 years ago. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, but the location was prime Soho, and the view was worth every penny of the $3.2 million I paid. Claire didn't know about it. No one did. It was mine in a way nothing else in my life had been. Not shared, not compromised, not subjected to someone else's aesthetic preferences or family traditions. I poured myself a whiskey, Pappy Van Winkle, 23 year. The kind of thing Richard would have shown off to dinner guests. I drank it alone, watching my phone light up with calls I didn't answer. The board meeting would be starting now. I imagined Richard at the head of the conference table, his CFO Stevens beside him, the other board members, hand-picked newsmen who'd rubber-stamped every decision for years, trying to understand how their world had just collapsed. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Meeting started. All notifications delivered. Do you want updates? No. I typed back. Just handle the logistics. I trust you. 3 dots appeared then. Michael, are you okay? I stared at that question for a long moment. Was I okay? I'd just blown up my marriage. I destroyed my father-in-law's business. I'd revealed secrets I'd kept for 5 years. By any rational measure, I should be devastated. Instead, I felt light. Yes, I typed. I'm fine. Another message from Marcus. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Thomas would be too. Thomas. God, I wished he were here to see this. He'd warned me about the Andersons when I first started dating Claire. Not directly. That wasn't his style, but with gentle questions. Are you sure she sees you, Michael? The real you? At the time, I thought I knew what he meant. Now I understood. My phone rang again. Claire's mother this time. I almost answered. Patricia had always been kinder to me than Richard, though kindness from her was still edged with condescension. But what would I say? What explanation could I give that would make sense to someone who'd never had to question whether people valued her for herself or her last name? I let it go to voicemail. The whiskey burned going down. Smooth and expensive and meaningless. That was the thing about money. The thing Thomas had tried to teach me and I'd learned the hard way. It didn't change anything fundamental. Rich people had the same petty jealousies, the same insecurities, the same capacity for cruelty as everyone else. They just wrapped it in better packaging. A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome. 2 years ago, Claire and I had been at some charity gala, the kind of event where ticket prices started at $1,000 and went up from there. We were standing by the bar and one of Claire's friends, Catherine something, old money so old it had probably financed the Revolutionary War, had looked me up and down with barely disguised disdain. "Claire, darling," Catherine had said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're so brave. I could never marry someone from such different circumstances. The cultural gap must be exhausting." Claire had laughed. Laughed. "Oh, Michael doesn't mind. He's very adaptable." Adaptable, like I was a pet who'd learned tricks. I'd stood there smiling, playing my role, being the good sport, the guy who didn't let things bother him. Inside, I'd been calculating how much Catherine's family business owed to a commercial lending facility I partially owned. Quite a lot, it turned out. I never did anything with that information, knowing it was enough. That's what people like the Andersons never understood. They thought power was about display. The mansion, the cars, the clothes, the obvious markers of wealth. But real power was quiet. It was knowing things, having leverage, being underestimated. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The board meeting minutes sent automatically to all stakeholders. I opened it, scanning the text. Emergency board meeting, Anderson Holdings. Date, November 11, 2025. Time 11 p.m. Attendees, Richard Anderson, CEO. John Stevens, CFO. Board members, full attendance. Agenda, capital withdrawal by Peterson Holdings LLC. Summary, Peterson Holdings LLC has withdrawn all capital investment totaling $37.2 million across multiple facilities, including real estate development credit line, $15.3 million. Technology acquisition bridge financing $8.7 million. Operational capital reserve $7.1 million. Equipment loans $4.3 million. Working capital facility $1.8 million. This withdrawal triggers default clauses on $12.4 million in third-party loans that were cross-collateralized against Peterson Holdings facilities. Immediate impact. Company faces approximately $49.6 million in immediate obligations with $8.1 million in available liquidity. Discussion. CEO Anderson reported that the withdrawal was unexpected and without prior notification. Attempts to contact Peterson Holdings representatives have been unsuccessful. The company's identity verification revealed Peterson Holdings is a private investment vehicle owned by Michael Peterson Anderson. Board action items. Attempt negotiation with Peterson Holdings for capital reinvestment. Explore emergency financing options. Initiate asset liquidation planning. Prepare for potential bankruptcy filing. Schedule emergency shareholder meeting for November 13, 2025. And I closed the email. Peterson Anderson. They'd used my full legal name, the one I'd taken when I married Claire, adding her family name to mine. At the time, I thought it was romantic. Now it just looked like another way I tried to fit myself into their world. Another call. Claire again. This time I answered. Michael. Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual polish. Michael, please. You have to stop this. I'm not doing anything, Claire. I withdrew my investment. That's my right. You're destroying us. You're destroying my family. No, I'm just removing myself from the equation. If your family's business was built on solid ground, my withdrawal wouldn't matter this much. That's semantics. She was crying hard now. You knew. You knew exactly what pulling that money would do. You did it on purpose. Yes, I agreed. I did. Why? Why would you hurt us like this? Hurt you? I laughed and it came out bitter. Claire, you've been hurting me for 5 years. You just never noticed because I didn't complain. That's not I don't understand what you want from me. I wanted you to see me. The actual me, not the version you created in your head. I do see you. Do you? What's my favorite book? Silence. What's the name of my best friend from college? The one I mention sometimes. More silence. What was my grandmother's name? Michael. Her name Claire. The woman who raised me. Who I talk about all the time. What was her name? I don't. This isn't fair. You're testing me. Her name was Helen Peterson, and she died 6 months before I met you. She worked 3 jobs to raise me. She taught me about dignity and self-respect and never taking from people who think they're better than you. She's the reason I am who I am. And you never bothered to remember her name. I could hear Claire sobbing on the other end of the line. You want to know what's really sad? I continued, my voice soft. I can tell you everything about you. I know your favorite childhood memory. The summer you spent in the Hamptons when you were 12 learning to sail. I know you're allergic to shellfish, but you eat it anyway at parties because you don't want to be difficult. I know you sleep on the left side of the bed because that's where your childhood bedroom window was and you liked watching the morning light. I know you, Claire. I paid attention. I cared. But you never bothered to know me because you thought you already understood what I was. Poor grateful. Lucky to be here. Stop it, she whispered. Please stop. I loved you. I said, I really did. But you didn't love me. You loved the idea of me. The charity project, the feel-good story, the poor kid who married the rich girl and lived happily ever after. That's not true. Then tell me why you're crying, Claire. Are you crying because I'm hurt? Because our marriage is ending? Or are you crying because your family's business is collapsing and you're realizing that the invisible husband you barely noticed actually mattered? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I have to go, I said quietly. Michael, wait. Please, can we meet? Can we talk in person? There has to be a way to fix this. There's nothing to fix. This isn't a problem to solve. It's just the truth finally being visible. Don't hang up. Please don't hang up. Goodbye, Claire. I ended the call and turned off my phone. The city stretched out below. Millions of lives, millions of stories. I was just one person among many. That should have felt small. Morning came through floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan spreading out like a promise. I made coffee in my kitchen. Not the fancy espresso machine Claire had insisted on at the Anderson estate, but a simple French press Thomas had given me. Good coffee, he'd said. Doesn't need machinery. Just patience and attention. I was on my second cup when my phone buzzed with a new message. Not Marcus this time, but my lawyer, Jennifer Chun. No relation to Marcus, though they'd worked together enough times to have a comfortable rapport. Michael, we need to talk. Emergency hearing scheduled for this afternoon. Anderson's lawyers are moving fast. I called her back. Morning. Jennifer said she sounded tired. You've stirred up quite a situation. I withdrew my investment. That's hardly illegal. No, but Anderson's legal team is arguing it was done in bad faith. They're claiming you had knowledge of pending deals and deliberately timed the withdrawal to cause maximum damage. I did, Michael. She sighed. You can't just admit that. Why not? It's the truth. I knew exactly what I was doing, which is why we need to be very careful about how we present this. The timing might constitute tortious interference with business relationships depending on how the judge sees it. I walked to the window, coffee cup in hand. Below, the city was waking up. Taxis and pedestrians and the morning rush of people who had places to be. Jennifer, every document related to my investment has an at-will withdrawal clause. I can remove my capital at any time for any reason that was explicitly negotiated. Yes, but I gave the legally required notification 12 hours before the withdrawal was complete exactly as specified in the contracts. Technically, yes, but there's no but. Jennifer, I followed the letter of the agreement. The fact that Anderson Holdings structured their entire business model around assuming I'd never exercise my legal rights isn't my problem. Silence on the other end, then you're not wrong. But Michael, this is going to get ugly. Claire's family has resources. They're going to fight. Let them. And your marriage? Claire will be at the hearing. Her lawyers are arguing that this is a domestic dispute. That should be. It's not a domestic dispute. It's a business decision. You're married to the CEO's daughter. Courts might see it differently. I took another sip of coffee. Then we'll deal with that. But I'm not backing down. I didn't think you would. Jennifer said, I just wanted to make sure you understand what you're facing. The Andersons are welcomed. They'll try to pressure you through social channels, business relationships, mutual acquaintances. It won't be pleasant. It hasn't been pleasant for 5 years. This is just a different kind of unpleasant. Fair enough. I'll see you at the courthouse at 2 p.m. Dress well. First impressions matter. I always dress well. I know, but Michael, dress rich. Let them see what they missed. After Jennifer hung up, I stood at the window for a long time thinking about armor. The Andersons had their armor, their name, their connections, their generational wealth. What was mine? The truth. Maybe the simple uncomfortable truth that they'd built their empire on someone else's foundation and never bothered to check if that someone might walk away. I dressed carefully for the hearing. Not the casual consultant clothes I usually wore around Claire's family, but a Tom Ford suit I'd bought 2 years ago and never worn. Custom-fitted midnight blue, the kind of thing that whispered money rather than shouting it. Thomas had taught me that, too. Real wealth doesn't need to announce itself. The courthouse was old Manhattan, all marble and brass and the weight of law. I arrived early, met Jennifer in the hallway. She looked me up and down and nodded approvingly. Good. You look like someone who belongs here. I do belong here. I know that. But now they'll know it, too. The Andersons arrived 15 minutes later. All of them, Richard, Patricia, Claire, Jonathan. They brought an army of lawyers. 3 of them in matching suits carrying briefcases that probably cost more than my first car. Claire saw me first. She'd been crying. I could see it in her eyes. The way her makeup was heavier than usual to cover the redness. She started toward me, but Jennifer stepped smoothly between us. Mrs. Peterson Anderson, Jennifer said, her voice professionally polite. Your lawyers should handle all communication at this point. He's my husband, Claire said. I can talk to my own husband. Not an illegal proceeding. You can't. Not without it potentially being used in court. Richard pushed forward, his face red. You son of a, you have any idea what you've done? Yes, I said calmly. I removed my financial support from a failing business. That's what I've done. Failing. We were thriving until you were leveraged to the breaking point, I interrupted. You were one bad quarter away from disaster. My capital was the only thing keeping you afloat. That's not thriving. That's drowning with expensive floaties. One of Richard's lawyers, a silver-haired man who screamed Ivy League, put a hand on Richard's shoulder. Mr. Anderson, please. Let's save it for the hearing. We filed into the courtroom. The judge was a black woman in her 50s, Judge Martinez, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked at both sides with the expression of someone who'd seen every kind of and had no patience for any of it. This is an emergency hearing regarding the withdrawal of investment capital, Judge Martinez said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Mr. Anderson's legal team has requested a temporary injunction, preventing Mr. Peterson Anderson from withdrawing funds, pending a full hearing on the matter. Mr. Peterson Anderson, you're represented by Ms. Chun. Yes, Your Honor, Jennifer said, standing. And you're arguing that no injunction is necessary because the withdrawal was completely legal. That's correct, Your Honor. My client exercised a contractual right to withdraw his investment with proper notification. There's no basis for an injunction. The silver-haired lawyer stood. Your Honor, Martin Prescott, representing Anderson Holdings. We believe there's clear evidence of bad faith here. Mr. Peterson Anderson deliberately concealed his financial position throughout his marriage, then weaponized that information to cause maximum harm to his wife's family business. Concealed, Jennifer's voice was sharp. My client was never asked about his financial position. There's no requirement to volunteer that information. He was living on his wife's trust fund. He was not, Jennifer interrupted. My client maintained a separate residence, paid for all his personal expenses, and contributed significantly to household expenses despite his wife's family assuming otherwise. Their assumption isn't his responsibility. Judge Martinez held up a hand. Let me make sure I understand this. Mr. Peterson Anderson, you married into the Anderson family without disclosing that you were independently wealthy. I stood. Your Honor, I didn't disclose it because I wasn't asked. My wife and her family made assumptions about my financial status based on my profession and background. I never lied about anything. But you knew they were making those assumptions. Yes, Your Honor. And you let them continue making those assumptions for 5 years. Yes, Your Honor. Why? The courtroom went silent. It was a good question. The kind of question that cut through the legal arguments to the heart of things. Because I wanted to know if they'd value me for who I was, I said quietly. Not what I had. My late mentor taught me that money changes how people see you. I wanted to know who my wife and her family really were before they knew about my finances. And what did you learn? Judge Martinez asked. I glanced at Claire. She was staring at me with tears streaming down her face. I learned that I was right to be cautious. Your Honor, Prescott jumped in. This is irrelevant to the question of whether the withdrawal should be stayed pending. On the contrary, Judge Martinez said, it's entirely relevant. You're asking me to force someone to keep their money in an investment they no longer wish to support. That's a very high bar, Mr. Prescott. You need to show me actual illegality, not just hurt feelings. There are timing issues, Your Honor. Mr. Peterson Anderson knew about pending deals, operational dependencies, all of which were disclosed in the quarterly reports he received as a primary investor. Jennifer countered. He had every right to consider that information in making his decision, but the timing was within the contractually specified notification period. There's no requirement that he time his withdrawal for his father-in-law's convenience. Judge Martinez leaned back, studying both sides. Mr. Prescott, I'm going to be honest with you. You don't have much of a case here. The withdrawal appears to be completely legal. The fact that it's devastating to your client's business doesn't make it illegal. Your Honor, we're talking about a personal relationship being weaponized. We're talking about a business relationship. Judge Martinez corrected. The fact that there's also a family relationship doesn't change the business realities. People divorce. People end business relationships. Sometimes those things happen simultaneously. It's not pleasant, but it's not illegal. Prescott looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Your Honor, we'd like to request a brief recess to consult with our client. Denied. Here's my ruling. The motion for a temporary injunction is denied. Mr. Peterson Anderson had a contractual right to withdraw his investment. He exercised that right appropriately, and I see no basis for court intervention. However, she turned to me. Mr. Peterson Anderson, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice. What you did was legal, but it was also cruel. You had other options. You could have given them more warning. You could have negotiated a transition period. You chose the nuclear option, and while that's your right, you're going to have to live with the consequences. This will get messy. Are you prepared for that? Yes, Your Honor. She studied me for a long moment. I think you are, which makes me wonder if that's what you wanted all along. The mess, the revelation, the reckoning. She wasn't wrong. This hearing is concluded. Judge Martinez said, Mr. Prescott, if you want to pursue a full civil case, that's your prerogative. But I'll tell you right now, you're going to lose. Save your clients some legal fees and advise them to focus on rebuilding their business rather than trying to force someone to subsidize it. The gavel came down in the hallway afterward. Richard tried to corner me, but security kept him back. Claire pushed through the crowd, reaching for me. Michael, please, can we just talk? Just the two of us. No lawyers, no parents, just us. I looked at her. She was still beautiful, still my wife, technically. Still the woman I'd loved enough to marry. Okay, I said. We went to a coffee shop 3 blocks from the courthouse. Not the kind of place the Andersons usually frequented. No white tablecloths or pré menus, just coffee and pastries and people who worked for a living. Claire looked out of place in her designer dress and heels. A orchid in a field of dandelions. She ordered a latte. I got black coffee. We sat at a table by the window and for a long moment neither of us spoke. I don't know who you are, Claire said finally. I thought I knew. I thought I understood you, but I don't. You're a complete stranger. No, I said, I'm exactly who I've always been. You just never looked closely enough to see it. That's not fair. You hid things from me, important things. I hid my bank balance, not my personality, not my values, not the things that actually matter. Money matters. Michael, don't be naive. Does it? Or does it just matter to you? She flinched. That's mean. Is it? Claire, think about our relationship. Really, think about it. When did you fall in love with me? What was it about me that made you want to marry me? I don't understand why you're asking this. Because I want to know if there was ever a version of us that was real. She stared into her latte, her finger tracing the rim of the cup. You were different from the men I usually met. You didn't care about my family's money. You didn't try to impress my father. You were yourself. It was refreshing. Refreshing? I repeated like I was an interesting menu choice. Don't do that. Don't twist my words. I'm not twisting them. I'm hearing them clearly for the first time. I leaned back. You liked that I didn't care about your money because it meant you could feel generous. You could be the one with power, the one bestowing favor. You liked that I didn't try to impress your father because it meant I wasn't competition. I was safe, non-threatening, a pet that wouldn't bite. That's horrible, she whispered. Is it wrong? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I did love you. I do love you. Maybe I didn't love you perfectly. Maybe I made mistakes, but I love you, Michael. Doesn't that count for something? What do you love? Specifically, name 3 things about me that don't involve how I make you feel. What? 3 things about me, not about us, not about how I treat you, not about what I do for you. 3 things about who I am as a person. She opened her mouth, closed it. You're kind. That's about how I treat people. That's not about me. Try again. You're smart. Generic. Try again. This is cruel, Michael. You're being deliberately cruel. I'm being honest. You can't name 3 things about me because you never paid attention. You love the idea of me. The story you got to tell about the kind, generous, rich girl who married below her station and made it work. But you never loved me. Stop it. She slammed her hand on the table, drawing looks from other customers. Stop telling me what I feel. You don't get to decide that. You're right. I don't. But I do get to decide that it's not enough. Whatever you feel, love, affection, habit, it's not enough for me anymore because of money. Because I didn't know you were rich. No, because you didn't care enough to really know me at all. The money is just how it became obvious. So what now? Her voice was hard. You destroy my family. You blow up our marriage. You ride off into the sunset feeling morally superior. I'm not destroying anything, Claire. I'm removing myself from a situation where I wasn't valued. Your family's business problems are just the consequence of them building on a foundation they didn't own. That's the same as destroying it. No, it's the same as revealing how unstable it already was. She laughed bitterly. You sound like my father. That same cold calculation, that same ability to reduce everything to logic and ledgers. Maybe that's why he underestimated me. He saw someone different on the surface and assumed I couldn't be like him underneath. So, you like him? Cold. Ruthless. No, I'm practical. There's a difference. Your father is ruthless because he enjoys power. I'm practical because I refuse to be a victim. A victim, she repeated. You married into wealth and privilege, and you think you're a victim. I married into a family that treated me like I should be grateful for the privilege of being tolerated. Yes, Claire. I was a victim of condescension, of assumption, of casual cruelty that you people don't even recognize as cruelty because you've never experienced the alternative. You people, she said, listen to yourself. You're talking about me like I'm the enemy, aren't you? I asked softly. Be honest. If I reinvest the money, if I fix your family's business, what changes? Do you suddenly see me differently? Does your father respect me, or do we go back to exactly how things were? Except now you're all nervous that I might pull the plug again. She was silent for a long moment, then so quietly, I almost couldn't hear it. I don't know. That's the most honest thing you've said to me in 5 years. I hate you right now, she said. I hate what you're doing. I hate that you're right. I'm sorry. Are you? You seem pretty satisfied with yourself. I'm not satisfied. I'm sad. This isn't what I wanted, Claire. I wanted a real marriage, real partnership, real respect. I tried for 5 years to earn it. But you can't earn something that should be freely given. So that's it. We're done. I think we've been done for a while. We just didn't admit it. She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely messy. Human, what happens now? You go back to your family. You figure out how to save the business or you don't. You move on with your life. And you? I do the same just like that. 5 years of marriage and you can just walk away, can't you? She looked at me. Really looked at me and something shifted in her expression. Recognition maybe or resignation. Yes, she said finally. I think I can. Then we agree on something. She stood up, gathering her purse. My lawyers will be in touch about the divorce. I'll make it easy. You can have everything that's legally yours. I don't want the house or the joint accounts or any of it. How generous, she said. But there was no bite in it. Just exhaustion. It's not generosity. It's self-preservation. I don't want anything that comes with strings attached to your family. They'll hate you forever. You know, my father, my mother, Jonathan, they'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Let them. Their opinion stopped matching to me the moment your father called my concerns pocket change. She paused at the door, looking back. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Maybe I didn't love you the right way. Maybe I took you for granted, but I never meant to hurt you. I know, I said. That's the worst part. You hurt me without even noticing. She left through the coffee shop window. I watched her get into a car, a Mercedes naturally, and drive away. Just like that, 5 years of marriage ended in a coffee shop that served burnt coffee and day-old muffins. My phone buzzed. Marcus, I assume you're not backing down. You assume correctly. Anderson's lawyers are already putting out feelers about settlement. They want to negotiate a reinvestment agreement. No. You're sure? They're offering significant concessions. Board seat, operational oversight, preferred equity. I don't want any of it, Marcus. I want out. Completely out. Then it's going to get messy. They have a lot of mutual business connections. People who pressure you. Let them. Michael. Marcus's voice gentled. I've known you a long time. I've never heard you like this. Are you okay? I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm free. Free is expensive when it comes with this many enemies. They're not my enemies. They're just people who overestimated their importance to me. That's a distinction that won't matter much when they start trying to damage your reputation. My reputation with who? The country club set that never accepted me anyway. The business community that didn't know I existed. Let them talk. Marcus, I've been invisible for 5 years. Being notorious will be a nice change. He laughed. Okay, then I'll handle the paperwork for full divestment. But Michael, think about what comes next. You're pulling out of Anderson Holdings, ending your marriage, severing ties with everyone in that world. What are you moving toward? It was a good question. What was I moving toward? I don't know yet, I admit it. But I'll figure it out. I always do. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I think Thomas would approve. He never liked the Andersons. He never said that. He didn't have to. The way he looked at Richard when they met at your wedding. If looks could kill, you'd have been a widower hour on your wedding day. I laughed despite myself. I miss him. Yeah, me too. He was a good man. One of the best I've ever known. After we hung up, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, watching the world go by. People rushing to meetings, tourists studying maps, a mother chasing a toddler, an old couple holding hands, regular people living regular lives. I'd spent 5 years trying to fit into a world that wasn't mine. Maybe it was time to figure out what world actually was. The media got hold of it within 48 hours. Not the mainstream media. This wasn't newsworthy enough for CNN or the Wall Street Journal. But the business blogs, the society pages, the gossip sites that track Manhattan's wealthy, they were all over it. Software consultant actually multimillionaire investor. Anderson Holdings faces crisis after mystery husband pulls funding from rags to riches to revenge. The Michael Peterson story. That last one was particularly creative. They dug up photos of me from college looking thin and hungry in clothes that didn't quite fit and contrasted them with recent photos from charity events where I stood next to Clare in my department store suits. The narrative wrote itself. Poor kid makes good, marries rich, turns out to be richer than his in-laws, destroys them in revenge. It wasn't entirely wrong, but it wasn't entirely right either. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years, distant relatives, former colleagues, everyone suddenly wanted to reconnect. It was fascinating how money changed the mathematics of relationship. When I was just Claire's husband, I wasn't worth the effort. Now that I was the Michael Peterson, everyone had time for coffee. I ignored most of the calls. But when I answered, Michael, it's Daniel. Daniel Kim from MIT. Daniel, my roommate from sophomore year back when MIT was more dream than reality, and I was working 3 jobs to pay tuition. We'd lost touch after graduation. He'd gone to Google. I'd started my consulting business. And our lives had diverged. Daniel, hi. Long time. I saw the news. Or what passes for news in those gossip rags. Is it true? You were secretly loaded this whole time. More or less, man. He laughed. Remember when we used to split ramen packages because they were cheaper that way and you were sitting on millions? I wasn't sitting on millions back then. That came later. Still, this is wild. Everyone from MIT is talking about it. You're like a legend now. I doubt that. No, seriously. The guy who kept it quiet, married into old money, then pulled the rug out when they disrespected him. That's some Count of Monte Cristo. It wasn't about revenge, Daniel, wasn't it? I didn't have a good answer to that. Listen, Daniel continued, I'm not calling to gossip. I'm calling because I could use your brain. I'm starting a new venture, AI-driven financial analysis tools, and I need investors who actually understand the tech. You interested? Maybe send me the prospectus. Will do. And Michael, whatever happened with your wife's family? I hope you're doing okay. I remember how you were about Claire. You really loved her. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Me, too. After I hung up, I realized something. Daniel hadn't called me because of the money. Or not just because of the money. He'd called because he remembered who I was before all of this. The guy who'd shared ramen and studied until 3 a.m. and actually gave a about the work, not just the paycheck. Maybe there was a path forward. Not back to the Anderson world, but into something new, something mine. My lawyer, Jennifer, called next. Michael, we need to talk about the divorce proceedings. That was fast. Claire's lawyers are pushing hard. They want this done quickly and quietly. Fine by me. There's going to be significant asset division to work out. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, which means I know what it means. Give her what she wants within reason. Michael, you're worth approximately $52 million. Within reason, Could be $26 million. Then that's what it costs to end the marriage. I'm fine with it. You're fine with potentially giving your ex-wife $26 million. It's not about the money, Jennifer. It never was. It's always about the money, Michael. That's what people don't understand until they have it. Maybe, but I'd rather be poor and free than rich and trapped. You're not going to be poor. Even after the divorce, you'll still have substantial assets. But this is a lot to give up. Only if you think money is the most valuable thing I could lose. I already lost 5 years. I'm not losing any more. She sighed. Okay, I'll negotiate the settlement, but I'm putting some protection in place whether you like it or not. She doesn't get to claim any of your future earnings or business ventures, and the assets that were yours before the marriage stay yours. Fine. And Michael? Claire's family is leaking stories. Nothing actionable, just innuendo. That you manipulated their daughter. That you deliberately set out to destroy them. That the whole marriage was a con. It's ugly. Let them. It's affecting your reputation. Some of the mutual acquaintances are. They're not my acquaintances, Jennifer. They're the Andersons' friends who tolerated me when they thought I was harmless. Their opinion doesn't matter. You sound very zen about this. I'm not zen. I'm just clear. For the first time in 5 years, I know exactly what I want and what I don't want. And what do you want? I want to build something that's mine, not inherited, not married into, not riding on someone else's coattails. Mine. That's very American dream of you. I'm a very American dream kind of guy. She laughed. Okay, I'll handle the settlement. But Michael, one more thing. Anderson Holdings is in serious trouble. They're trying to raise emergency capital, but word is out about the instability. They might go under completely and you have the power to stop it. You could reinvest, save them, be the hero. I'm not interested in being their hero. They had 5 years to treat me with basic respect. They chose otherwise. So, you're really okay watching them fail? I'm okay with letting them succeed or fail on their own merit without me propping them up? That's cold, Michael. No, that's honest. Cold would be actively trying to destroy them. I'm just stepping back. The effect is the same maybe, but the intention matters, at least to me. After Jennifer hung up, I pulled out my laptop and looked at Daniel's prospectus. The AI financial analysis tools were interesting. Using machine learning to detect patterns in market behavior, predict disruptions, analyze risk. It was the kind of thing I would have loved to work on if I hadn't been so busy pretending to be someone I wasn't. I wrote Daniel back. I'm interested. Let's set up a meeting. Then I opened another email. This one from Claire. Michael, I don't expect you to read this, but I need to write it anyway. You were right about all of it. I didn't see you. I didn't value you. I married someone I thought I understood, and I never bothered to look deeper. My therapist, yes, I'm seeing a therapist now. Asked me to write down everything I know about you without Googling or asking anyone else. I couldn't fill a page. 5 years of marriage and I couldn't fill a single page with real knowledge about who you are. That's unforgivable. I know that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just acknowledging it. My family's business is probably going to fail. Daddy's trying to find emergency investors, but you were right about the fundamentals. We were overleveraged, overextended, living on borrowed capital, literally and figuratively. Part of me hates you for pulling the rug out, but the bigger part knows you just removed the rug you've been lending us. We were standing on your foundation and calling it ours. That wasn't fair to you. I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you deleted it as soon as you saw my name. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm genuinely deeply sorry for not seeing you, for not valuing you, for being the kind of person who needed to lose something to appreciate what it was worth. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I hope you build that thing that's yours. And I hope maybe someday you can forgive me. Claire. I read it twice. Then a third time. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me, and it came too late to matter. But I wrote back, Claire, I do forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger doesn't serve me. You weren't malicious. You were just careless with someone who deserved your care. I hope your family's business survives. I really do. Not for your sake or your father's sake, but because there are employees who depend on it. People who did nothing wrong and don't deserve to lose their jobs because of poor management. But I can't save it for them. That's not my responsibility. It was never my responsibility. I hope you find someone who you actually see, who you value for themselves, not for what they represent or how they make you feel. You deserve that. Everyone does. But I can't be that person for you. I don't think I ever was. Good luck with everything, Michael. I hit send and closed the laptop. Outside my window, the sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in oranges and purples. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Daniel about his new venture. I'd sign the divorce papers. I'd start building something new. But tonight, I just watched the sunset and felt the weight of 5 years finally lift off my shoulders. 6 months later, I was standing in a different office. Not the Anderson estate, not even close. This was a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, all exposed brick and industrial windows, filled with the sound of keyboards clicking and the low hum of servers. Daniel's company, Clarity AI, had grown from a concept to a functioning startup with 12 employees and 2 major clients. My investment had been the seed money, but I'd done more than just write checks. I'd rolled up my sleeves, got back into actual coding, remembered what it felt like to build something real. Michael. Daniel poked his head into the office. I claimed not the biggest one, just a corner with good light. Client presentation in 10 minutes. You ready? Ready. The client was a mid-sized hedge fund looking to improve their risk analysis. Nothing revolutionary, but solid work that paid well. And let us prove our concept. I'd put together the technical presentation myself, walking through how our algorithms detected patterns that traditional analysis missed. It felt good. Real mine. After the presentation, which went well, we'd probably land the contract. I grabbed coffee with Daniel. You seem different, he said. Lighter maybe. I am. The divorce finalized. Last month, Claire got the house, half the liquid assets, a settlement payment. I kept the business investments, and the properties. How much did it cost you? $23 million. Give or take? He whistled. That's a lot of money for a failed marriage. It's a bargain for freedom. Have you heard from them? The Andersons? Not directly, but I keep track. Anderson Holdings filed for Chapter 11 last month. They're restructuring, selling off assets, trying to find a buyer. And you feel nothing. Mostly some sadness. Not for Richard. He'll be fine. He's got personal wealth separate from the business. But the employees who are getting laid off, the smaller investors who will lose money, I feel bad for them. Not bad enough to help. Not my circus. Not my monkeys. They didn't put me in charge of that business. They don't get to make me responsible for its failure. Daniel studied me. You've changed, man. You're harder than you used to be. No, I'm just done being soft in ways that hurt me. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Michael Peterson. A woman's voice vaguely familiar. Yes, this is Catherine Vickers. We met at a charity gala a few years ago. I was a friend of Claire's. Catherine, the one who'd called me adaptable like it was a compliment. I remember I'm calling because, well, this is awkward, but I'm on the board of the Riverside Foundation. We provide educational opportunities for underprivileged youth and we're looking for new board members and donors. And you thought of me because you're exactly the kind of success story we want to promote. Someone who came from nothing and made something of himself. Your story is inspiring, Michael. My story is that I was quietly successful until I wasn't quiet anymore. Still, it's compelling. And you have resources now that could help a lot of kids like you used to be. I thought about that about 12-year-old me calculating lunch money, about teenage me building websites for $20 a pop, about all the times I'd wish someone with resources had seen me, helped me, invested in me. Thomas had done that, had given me the mentorship and eventually the capital to become who I was. Maybe it was time to pay that forward. Send me information about the foundation. I said, I'll think about it. Really, Catherine, if I join your board, I'm not going to be a trophy. I'm going to work. I'm going to have opinions. I'm going to push for changes if I think they're needed. If you want a quiet donor who shows up for photos and writes checks, I'm not your guy. She laughed. That's exactly what we need. Someone who will shake things up. After I hung up, Daniel grinned at me. Joining the charity circuit, maybe if I can do it my way. Your way being active, engaged, actually helping instead of just performing helpfulness. That's going to piss off the old guard. They like their charity nice and decorative. Let them be pissed. I'm done worrying about what people like that think of me. We finished our coffee and walked back to the office. The sun was setting over Brooklyn, painting the warehouse windows gold. Inside, the team was still working. Young engineers and analysts, most of them straight out of college. All of them brilliant and hungry and building something real. This was mine. Not inherited, not given, not riding on someone else's name. Mine. My phone buzzed again. This time I recognized the number. Jennifer, Michael, you need to hear this. Anderson Holdings bankruptcy trustee just contacted me. They want to negotiate a deal. What kind of deal? They're willing to sell you the company. Or what's left of it. For approximately $8 million. I stopped walking. They want me to buy Anderson Holdings. What's left of it? Yes. The real estate has been liquidated. The tech division sold off, but the core holding company and a few subsidiary assets remain. The trustee thinks you're the most logical buyer since you understand the business structure and you have the capital. That's insane, is it? You could buy it, restructure it, maybe even make it profitable again. It's a good deal, Michael. $8 million for assets that were valued at 20 plus just a year ago. Because they're worth less now. Because the business failed doesn't mean it can't be saved. I thought about it. Buying Anderson Holdings, owning the company that Richard had been so proud of. The symmetry was almost poetic. What does Richard think about this? He doesn't have a say. It's a bankruptcy asset. But word is he's furious. He's trying to find other buyers, but no one else is interested. So, I'd be buying it out from under him. Essentially, yes. I walked to the warehouse windows, looking out at Brooklyn. Behind me, my team was building something new, something that mattered. Did I really want to drag myself back into the Anderson world, even as its owner? No, I said finally. No, I'm not interested. Thanks for the heads up, Jennifer, but I'm not buying it. Michael, this is a significant opportunity for someone else. Not for me. I'm done with the Andersons. I'm done with that whole world. Let someone else save them or let the company dissolve. I don't care which. You're turning down a potential bargain acquisition because of personal feelings. I'm turning down a distraction from what I'm actually trying to build. The Anderson Holdings purchase would be revenge dressed up as business. I'm not interested in revenge anymore. I'm interested in building something that matters. That's very mature of you. Don't sound so surprised. She laughed. Fair enough. I'll inform the trustee. And Michael, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Yeah, me too. The Riverside Foundation office was nothing like I'd expected. No marble lobbies or expensive art. Just a renovated brownstone in Harlem with cheerful chaos spilling out of every room. Kids doing homework. College students mentoring. Volunteers organizing book drives. Catherine met me at the door. She looked different from the last time I'd seen her. Less polished, more genuine. Michael, thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting me. She led me through the building, explaining programs as we walked. We serve about 300 students directly with another 1,000 through our partner programs. Tutoring, college prep, scholarship support, mentorship, everything I wish I'd had when I was growing up. You grew up needing this kind of program. She smiled. The Catherine Vickers you met at that gala was fourth-generation wealth living off trust funds. But my grandfather was the first Vickers to have money. He was a janitor who saved every penny and invested in real estate when Harlem was cheap. By the time I was born, we were wealthy. But he never forgot where he came from. This foundation was his dream. I'm just trying to honor it. We reached a classroom where a dozen teenagers were gathered around laptops, clearly working on some kind of project. A young woman, mid-20s, wearing a Girls Who Code t-shirt was helping them debug something. This is our technology track. Catherine said, we partner with local tech companies to give kids real-world experience. It's our newest program. We're hoping to expand it, but we need funding and expertise. I watched the kids work. One of them, a black girl, maybe 15 years old, was flying through code with the kind of fluency that reminded me of myself at that age. Hungry, focused, smart in a way that school didn't always catch. What's her name? I asked quietly. Jasmine. She's brilliant. Won a citywide coding competition last year, but her family can't afford college, so we're trying to line up scholarships. I walked over to the table. Jasmine looked up, wary in the way kids get when adults invade their space. That's elegant code, I said, pointing at her screen. You using recursion to solve the tree traversal? Her weariness shifted to interest. Yeah, it's faster than iteration for this size data set. Have you thought about memoization to optimize the repeated calculations? Her eyes lit up. I tried, but I couldn't get the cache management right. We spent the next 20 minutes working through the problem together. By the end, she'd optimized her code by about 40% and was grinning like she'd won the lottery. You're good at this, she said. So, are you better than I was at your age? Really? Really? What are you planning to study in college? Computer science. If I can afford to go, you'll go, I said. Trust me on that. After the tour, Catherine and I sat in her office, a cramped room with a desk drowning in paperwork and photos of students on every surface. So, she said, what do you think? I think you're doing important work. But you're thinking too small. She raised an eyebrow. Too small. 300 students. That's great, but it's not scalable. You need infrastructure, partnerships, a sustainable funding model that doesn't rely on individual donors. You need to think like a business. We're a nonprofit, Michael. We're not a business. That's exactly the problem. Nonprofits that don't think like businesses fail. You need sustainable revenue streams, measurable outcomes, scalable processes. You're running this like a passion project. It should be run like a social enterprise. That's very corporate of you. It's practical. You want to help kids? Great. Me, too. But helping 300 kids when you could be helping 3,000 is a choice. A choice to stay comfortable instead of scaling. She studied me. What are you proposing? I'll join your board. I'll donate significantly. Let's say $5 million over 5 years. But I want operational involvement. I want to help restructure the organization, build sustainable programs, create something that can outlive all of us. $5 million. It's not about the money, Catherine, though. The money helps. It's about building something that actually makes a difference. I've spent the last 6 months remembering what it's like to build things. This is worth building. And you want control. I want partnership. You know, the mission. I know organizational structure and scalability. Together, we could build something significant. She leaned back in her chair. You know what's funny? When I called you, I thought you'd write a check and show up for photo ops. I didn't expect this. This real engagement, real commitment. Most wealthy donors want their name on a building and a tax deduction. You're talking about actual work. I've got a lot of time and money and absolutely no interest in vanity projects. This is real. These kids are real. The impact is real. Why wouldn't I work for that? She smiled. Welcome to the board, Michael. We shook hands. Over the next 6 months, I threw myself into the foundation with the same intensity I brought to Clarity AI. I hired a management consultant to audit operations. I recruited tech companies to create apprenticeship programs. I personally mentored a cohort of students interested in computer science, including Jasmine, who is now set for a full scholarship to MIT. It felt good. Not like revenge or winning or proving anything, just good. One afternoon, I was in the foundation office reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. An unknown number with a Connecticut area code. Against my better judgment, I answered, Michael. Richard Anderson's voice older than I remembered. Tired. It's Richard. Silence. I didn't know what to say. I heard you're working with the Riverside Foundation. He continued that you made a significant donation. I did. That's good. That's a good organization. More silence. Michael, I'm calling because I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, Richard. Yes, I do. I owe you an acknowledgement that I was wrong about you. About everything. You tried to tell me the business had problems. You tried to help. And I dismissed you. I mocked you. I treated you like you were nothing. Yes, you did. And you turned out to be right about all of it. The real estate division, the tech acquisition, the leverage, everything you warned about came true. I take no pleasure in that. I didn't expect you would. You're not that kind of person. I should have seen that. Claire should have seen that. We were so busy assuming we knew who you were that we never bothered to actually look. Why are you calling me Richard? A long exhale. Because I'm dying. That stopped me. What? Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors give me maybe 6 months. I'm sorry. Are you after everything? Yes. I didn't want you to suffer, Richard. I just wanted you to see me, to acknowledge that I mattered. You mattered. You always mattered. I was just too proud and too stupid to admit it. Okay, that's it. Okay. What do you want me to say? That I forgive you? Fine. I forgive you. That I'll reinvest in what's left of your company? That's not happening. I've moved on, Richard. I'm building something else. Something that actually helps people. I know. I heard about your work with the foundation. It's good work, Michael. Important work. The kind of thing I should have done with my money instead of just accumulating more of it. It's not too late for you to do something meaningful with what you have left, isn't it? No, you've got 6 months. That's time. You can still choose how you want to be remembered. He was quiet for so long. I thought he'd hung up then. Thank you for what? For not being the person I treated you as. For being better than I deserved. I'm not better, Richard. I'm just different. You taught me something important, actually. You taught me that respect isn't about money or status. It's about seeing people as they actually are. Valuing them for their character, not their bank balance. That's a lesson I learned too late. Better late than never. Is it? He laughed bitterly. I'm dying, Michael. My business failed. My daughter divorced the best thing that ever happened to her. My legacy is a cautionary tale. When was it better that I learned this lesson? Now. Right now. You still have time to be someone different. Someone better. Use it how? However you want. Donate to charity. Make amends with people you've hurt. Spend time with your family actually seeing them. I don't know, Richard, but you have 6 months to figure it out. That's more than some people get. Another long silence. Then will you come to the funeral? When the time comes. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Fair enough. Goodbye, Michael. Goodbye, Richard. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about endings and beginnings and the strange way life circles back on itself. Richard Anderson was dying. The man who dismissed me, mocked me, treated me like I didn't matter. He was dying, and he'd called to apologize. It didn't undo anything. Didn't change the past, but maybe it changed the future somehow. His future at least. I went back to work on the quarterly report. There was too much to do, too much to build, to spend time dwelling on what couldn't be changed. Richard died 4 months later. I didn't go to the funeral, not out of spite, but because I'd moved beyond needing that kind of closure. Clare sent me an invitation, and I sent flowers. White lees, a simple card for the lessons, wanted and unwanted. Rest in peace. Patricia called me a week after the funeral. Michael, I want to thank you for the flowers. They were lovely. You're welcome. I also wanted you to know that Richard changed his will. 3 months ago, he left a significant portion of his personal estate to the Riverside Foundation. $2 million. I sat up straighter. He what? He said you inspired him. That you showed him what meaningful wealth looked like. He wanted to contribute to that legacy. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know he died with some regrets, but he also died trying to be better. That counted for something. Yes, it did. Michael, do you hate us? Me and Claire and Jonathan, do you hate us for how we treated you? I thought about that. Hate was such a strong word, a binding word. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I don't think I ever did. I was hurt. I was angry, but hate, no, I'm glad. I know I wasn't kind to you. None of us were. We took you for granted. We assumed you should be grateful for our acceptance instead of realizing we should be grateful for yours. Patricia, no. Let me finish. You were good to my daughter. You tried to help our business. You were patient and kind and decent, and we repaid that with condescension. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm genuinely sorry. Thank you. Are you happy now? In your new life? I looked around my Brooklyn office. Through the window, I could see the team working. Daniel explaining something to a new hire, Jasmine, who'd started a summer internship with us. Laughing at something on her screen. Good people doing good work. Yes, I said. I'm happy. I'm glad you deserve that. And Michael, thank you for the lessons you taught us. For being the person who wouldn't accept less than he deserved. We needed to learn that. You're welcome. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about circles and closure and the strange mathematics of forgiveness. I'd started this journey wanting to be seen, to be valued, to matter to people who dismissed me. And I'd ended it realizing that their validation had never been the point. The point was seeing myself clearly, valuing myself appropriately, understanding that I mattered regardless of what they thought. That evening, I met Catherine at the foundation for a board meeting. We'd grown substantially, 1,200 students now, partnerships with 8 tech companies, a new scholarship fund named after Richard Anderson. It wasn't enough yet. It would never be enough until every kid who wanted an education could get one. But it was progress. After the meeting, Catherine and I grabbed dinner at a small Italian place in Harlem. You seem at peace, she said. Different from when I first called you 6 months ago. I am at peace. Is it because of Richard's donation? No. That's generous and it'll help a lot of kids. But that's not it. Then what? I thought about how to explain it. When I pulled my money from Anderson Holdings, I thought I was making a statement, proving a point, showing them they'd underestimated me. And I was, but I was also freeing myself. Not from them, from my need to be validated by them. That was the real prison. Not their condescension, but my need for their approval. That's very zen. It's very honest. I spent 5 years trying to earn something that should have been freely given. When I stopped trying, I realized I didn't actually need it. Do you miss it? The marriage, the life you had. Sometimes I miss the idea of it. The dream of being part of a family, of belonging somewhere. But the reality, no, I don't miss performing for people who'd never really see me. What about Claire? Do you miss her? I miss who I thought she was. But that person never existed. She was a projection, a fantasy I created because I wanted to believe love could bridge any gap. But some gaps aren't meant to be bridged. Some differences aren't about growth or compromise. They're just incompatibility. That's sad, is it? I think it's realistic. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some are just meant to teach you something. What did that relationship teach you? That I'm enough. Just as I am. Poor or rich, connected or independent, approved of or dismissed. I'm enough. That's not something the Andersons gave me. It's something I learned by walking away from them. Catherine smiled. Thomas would be proud of you. Yeah, I think he would. We finished dinner and walked out into a warm June evening. Harlem was alive with people and music and the kind of energy that only cities have. I'd grown up in poverty in a place like this. Different city, same hustle, same hunger. But I wasn't hungry anymore. Not for money or status or approval. I had enough. I was enough. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Michael, where are you? We've got a crisis at the office. One of our clients is threatening to pull their contract because of some press about your divorce. They're worried about stability. I sighed. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Thanks, man. I looked at Catherine. Duty calls. Go save the day. That's what you do now. Is it? Yes. You're a builder, Michael. That's what you've always been. You just got distracted for a while building the wrong things for the wrong people. Now you're back on track. I thought about that as I walked to the subway. A builder, someone who created rather than destroyed, someone who added value rather than extracting it. The Anderson affair had looked like destruction from the outside. But it hadn't been. It had been the necessary demolition before rebuilding. You can't construct something solid on a faulty foundation. Sometimes you have to tear down what's broken before you can create what works. At the office, I handled the client crisis. It turned out to be less dramatic than Daniel made it sound. Just some reassurances and a contract amendment. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. The office was empty except for me and the city lights beyond the windows. I stood there for a moment thinking about the past year. The dinner that changed everything, the confrontation, the divorce, the rebuilding. A year ago, I'd been invisible. A shadow in someone else's story. Now I was writing my own. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. This is Claire. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Real help, therapy, self-reflection, all of it. You were right about everything. I didn't see you. I didn't value you. I'm trying to learn how to see people now. How to value them for real. Thank you for being brave enough to walk away. It was the wake-up call I needed. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. See, I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, I'm glad you're doing the work. That takes courage. I hope you find what you're looking for. Be well. I didn't add love or miss you or any of the other phrases that used to end our messages because I didn't love her. Not anymore. And I didn't miss her. Not really. What I felt was something quieter. Relief that she was growing. Hope that she'd be better to whoever she loved next. And gratitude that I'd been brave enough to demand better for myself. I turned off my phone and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were living their lives, struggling and succeeding, loving and losing, building and breaking. I was just one person among millions. But I was free and that was enough. The gala was Catherine's idea, a fundraiser for the foundation, she'd said. Black tie, expensive tickets, all the wealthy people you hate. I don't hate wealthy people. I just hate the ones who think wealth makes them better than everyone else. So, most of them, fair point. But I went, wore my best tuxedo, Tom Ford again, because if you're going to do black tie, do it right. The venue was the Metropolitan Museum of Art, rented for the evening, full of the kind of people who wrote five-figure checks without blinking. The foundation had grown exponentially. We were serving over 5,000 students now across 3 cities with plans to expand nationally. The scholarship fund was endowed at $15 million. The technology track had placed 68 students in top engineering programs. We'd become a case study in scalable philanthropy. I was giving the keynote speech. Catherine had insisted. You're the face of this organization. She'd said, you're the founder. You should speak. You're the story everyone wants to hear. Poor kid makes good, gives back, creates lasting change. That's compelling, Michael. It's also reductive. It's also true. So there I was, standing backstage, waiting to be introduced when I saw her, Clare. She looked different, older maybe, though it had only been 3 years, but also more settled, more genuine. She was talking to someone I didn't recognize, laughing at something, and the laugh sounded real in a way her old laughs never had. She saw me. Our eyes met across the crowd. She smiled. Not the smile I remembered, but something quieter, more honest. She excused herself from her conversation and walked over. "Michael, Clare, you look good." "Happy?" "I am." "You look good, too." "Thanks. I'm here with my partner, Sarah. She's a teacher. We met at a volunteer event last year." "That's great. I'm happy for you." "Are you? I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "I don't have any animosity toward you, Clare. That ended a long time ago." She nodded. "I've been following the Foundation's work. It's incredible what you've built. It's not just me. It's a whole team. But you started it. You saw the need and filled it. That's not nothing, Michael." "Thank you." An awkward pause. "Then I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again. I'm sorry for not seeing you, for taking you for granted, for being someone who needed to lose everything to learn anything. You didn't lose everything, Clare. You just lost me. And honestly, I don't think you really had me to lose. We were both playing roles in a relationship that wasn't quite real. Maybe, but I still wish I'd been better. You're being better now. That's what matters." She smiled. "I like to think so. Sarah helps. She calls me on my makes me actually look at people instead of just categorizing them. She sounds good for you." "She is. And you? Anyone special?" I thought about the question. There had been dates over the past 3 years, a couple of relationships that didn't quite stick. Nothing serious. I was okay with that. Not yet, but I'm not looking. If it happens, it happens. That's healthy. It's honest. Catherine appeared, tapping her watch. "Michael, you're on in 5. "Okay. Thanks." I turned back to Clare. "It was good to see you." "You, too, Michael. Break a leg. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say." I walked toward the stage, my heart surprisingly calm. Seeing Clare should have felt like something painful or bitter or nostalgic. Instead, it just felt like seeing an old acquaintance, someone I used to know well but had grown apart from normal human. "Okay." The introduction was warm. Catherine talking about my work with the Foundation, the impact we'd had, the lives we'd changed. Then I was walking on stage, standing in front of 500 people in formal wear, looking out at a sea of faces. I saw Clare and her partner Sarah. I saw Catherine beaming from the side of the stage. I saw Jasmine, who was now a sophomore at MIT and had come back to volunteer at the event. I saw Daniel, who'd become a Foundation board member. I saw Patricia Anderson sitting near the back, looking smaller and older without Richard beside her. I took a breath and began. 3 years ago, I was sitting at a dinner table with people who thought they knew exactly who I was. They'd made assumptions based on how I dressed, where I came from, what they thought I could contribute. They were wrong. But for 5 years, I let them be wrong because I wanted something from them. Acceptance, approval, belonging. When I finally walked away from that table, I thought I was making a grand statement, proving them wrong, showing them what they'd missed. And maybe I was. But more importantly, I was freeing myself to become someone different, someone who built things that mattered rather than performing for people who didn't. The Riverside Foundation exists because I learned a hard lesson. Your worth isn't determined by who sees it. It's inherent, unchangeable. The question isn't whether you're valuable. You are. The question is whether you're investing your value in things that deserve it. Every student we serve, every scholarship we fund, every mentorship program we create, that's an investment and inherent worth. We're not saving these kids. They don't need saving. We're just removing the barriers that keep them from showing the world what they already are. Brilliant, capable, deserving of every opportunity. I grew up poor. Really poor. The kind of poor where you learn to be invisible because being seen means being mocked. I learned to make myself small, to not take up space, to be grateful for scraps of attention from people who had more than me. And then I got lucky. I met a mentor who saw me, really saw me and invested in me. Not just money though that helped, but time, attention, belief. He taught me that wealth isn't just about capital. It's about what you choose to build with that capital. For years, I forgot that lesson. I got married into a wealthy family and spent 5 years trying to earn acceptance from people who'd already decided I wasn't worth their respect. I could have spent those 5 years building something meaningful. Instead, I spent them being small. When I finally walked away, when I finally reclaimed my own worth, I had to figure out who I was without the performance, without the mask, without the need for external validation. And I discovered something surprising. I'm a builder. That's what I've always been. I build code. I build companies. I build relationships. I build systems. But I've been building on someone else's foundation according to someone else's blueprint for someone else's approval. The Riverside Foundation is mine. Not in the sense that I own it. It belongs to all of us, to the students we serve, to the community we're part of. But it's mine in the sense that I chose it. I built it. I invest in it every day because I believe in it, not because anyone told me to. Every kid we help is another person who gets to learn what I learned. You don't need permission to be valuable. You don't need acceptance from the right people or admission to the right schools or approval from the right families. You just need opportunity, support, someone who sees you and believes in you and gives you the tools to build your own foundation. Tonight, we're asking you to invest in that belief. Not in saving anyone. These kids don't need saving, but in removing barriers, in creating opportunities, in building a world where worth is recognized rather than having to be proven. I'm not standing here as a success story. I'm standing here as someone who got lucky and who's trying to make sure luck isn't the determining factor for the next generation. These kids are brilliant. They're capable. They just need a chance. Give them that chance. Not because it makes you feel good, though it will. Not because it looks good on your tax return, though it does, but because it's right. Because every person deserves the opportunity to build their own foundation rather than having to perform on someone else's stage. Thank you. The applause was immediate and sustained. I walked off the stage feeling lighter than I had in years. Catherine grabbed me in a hug. That was perfect, she said. Honest and raw and perfect. I just told the truth. That's why it was perfect. The rest of the evening was a blur of conversations, introductions, pledges. By the time the event ended, we'd raised $2.3 million, enough to expand to 2 more cities to fund another 100 scholarships to keep building. I was heading toward the exit when Patricia Anderson caught up with me. Michael, do you have a moment? Of course. We stepped into a quieter corner of the museum, away from the crowds. Your speech was beautiful, she said. Painful, but beautiful. I heard Richard in it. The lessons he taught you, not intentionally, but through his failures. He taught me a lot. Not all of it pleasant. No, but you took those painful lessons and built something meaningful. That's more than most people do with pain. They just pass it on. Is that why you're here? To tell me I handled my pain well. She smiled sadly. No, I'm here because I want to donate significantly. Richard left me quite well off and I've been thinking about what to do with it. I'd like to establish a scholarship fund in his name. Not to absolve him. He made his mistakes and he owned them at the end. But to honor what he should have been, what he could have been if he'd learned these lessons earlier. That's generous, Patricia. It's necessary for me, not for him. I need to believe that our wealth can do some good. That our family's legacy can be more than just what it was. How much are you thinking? $5 million endowed specifically for first-generation college students from working-class backgrounds. Kids like you were kids who shouldn't have to be invisible to survive. I felt something catch in my throat. That would change a lot of lives. Good lives should be changed. We had the resources to do it all along. We just never thought to ask how. We were too busy protecting what we had to think about what we could give. I'll make sure it's used well. I know you will. You always did understand what mattered. We just couldn't see it. She started to walk away, then turned back. Michael, I know this doesn't change anything. Doesn't undo the hurt or the years you spent being dismissed, but for what it's worth. I see you now. I really see you, and I'm sorry it took so long. Thank you, Patricia. That means something. After she left, I stood there for a moment processing. $5 million from the woman whose husband had called my concerns pocket change. The symmetry was almost too perfect. But it wasn't about symmetry. It wasn't about revenge or vindication or proving anything. It was about taking something broken and building something better. I walked out into the New York night. The city stretched out around me, alive and indifferent and full of possibility. 3 years ago, I'd walked out of a different building, away from a different life, not knowing what came next. Now I knew what came next was this. Building, growing, investing in things that mattered. Creating opportunities for people who deserve them. Living honestly instead of performing carefully. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Saw you on the live stream. That speech made me cry. Thank you for seeing us, for building this, for showing us that our worth doesn't depend on anyone else's recognition. I typed back, thank you for reminding me why this matters. Keep being brilliant. Then I walked home through the city streets, past restaurants and shops and people living their lives. I wasn't invisible anymore, but I also wasn't performing. I was just present, real enough, and that I realized was exactly what I've been searching for all along. The documentary crew wanted to film in the Anderson estate for the full circle. The director said, You started there and now the foundation has expanded to serve 10,000 students. That's the story. The story isn't about revenge, I told her. It's about recognizing your own worth. We know, but the setting matters. It's visual metaphor. So, there I was, back in the dining room where it had all started. The house had been sold after Patricia died. She'd left most of her wealth to the foundation, another $7 million that pushed our endowment past $50 million. The new owners had agreed to let us film for a day. The chandelier was the same. The table was different. Everything felt smaller than I remembered. Tell me about that night, the director prompted. The dinner where everything changed. I looked at the head of the table where Richard had sat. I came to that dinner thinking I could help. I'd been studying their business for months, seeing the cracks in the foundation. I thought if I could just explain it clearly enough, they'd listen. But they didn't. No, they laughed. Called my concerns pocket change. Made it clear that I didn't matter, my opinion didn't matter, that I was just. I paused, looking for the right word, tolerated. I was tolerated, not valued. And that's when you decided to pull your investment. That's when I decided to stop accepting being invisible. The investment withdrawal was just the mechanism. Do you regret it? The fallout, the business that failed, the marriage that ended? I thought about that. I regret the pain it caused people who didn't deserve it. The employees who lost jobs. The smaller investors who lost money. But do I regret standing up for myself? No. I'd do it again. Even knowing what it would cost. Especially knowing what it would cost because I also know what I gained. Freedom, purpose, the ability to build something that actually matters. We filmed for 3 more hours. Me walking through the estate grounds, standing in the study where I'd made that first call to Marcus, sitting at the table where I'd been dismissed. The director wanted the full story, every angle, every emotion. When we finished, I stood in the driveway, looking back at the house. 8 years since that dinner, 8 years since I'd walked out of this life and into something else entirely. My phone rang. Catherine, Michael, you need to see this. The application numbers for next year's cohort just came in. We have 12,000 applicants. 12,000 kids who want a chance. How many can we take? With current funding, maybe 2,000. Then we need to raise more money. We're already at capacity for individual donor management. We need to think about institutional partnerships, corporate sponsorships, maybe even a capital campaign. Do it. All of it. We'll figure out the infrastructure as we go. But we can't turn away 10,000 kids because of logistics. Michael, that's a massive undertaking. So was starting this foundation. So was walking away from a life that didn't fit. So was deciding to build something that mattered. We'll figure it out, Catherine. We always do. She laughed. You know what? You're right. We'll figure it out. After we hung up, I took one last look at the Anderson estate, then got in my car, still a Honda Civic, though a newer model now, and drove back to the city. The documentary would air in 6 months. It would tell the story of a man who walked away from wealth and found purpose, who turned hurt into healing, who built something meaningful from the rubble of a failed marriage and a collapsed business. But that wasn't really the story. The real story was simpler and more universal. A person who decided they were enough, who refused to be invisible, who invested their worth in things that deserved it. The real story was about every kid we'd helped who'd been told they didn't belong and proved otherwise. Every scholarship recipient who'd been invisible until someone chose to see them. Every mentor who'd invested time because they remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. The real story was about recognizing that worth isn't earned or granted or approved by others. It's inherent, present, unchangeable. You just have to be brave enough to claim it. And sometimes that bravery looks like walking away from a dinner table where you're not valued, texting your investment manager and watching the foundation crumble. Sometimes it looks like building something new from the ground up. Sometimes it looks like refusing to accept pocket change when you know you're worth so much more. I drove through the city as the sun set, painting everything in gold. The buildings, the streets, the people rushing home to lives I'd never know. Somewhere in this city, a kid was sitting at a dinner table being told they didn't matter, that their dreams were too big, that they should be grateful for scraps. Tomorrow, maybe that kid would find our foundation, would apply for a scholarship, would get the chance to build their own foundation instead of standing on someone else's. And the cycle would continue. Hurt transmuted into healing, dismissal transformed into recognition, pocket change invested into generational change. That was the real story and it was still being written.